Oh, welcome back to Radio Taiwan International. You're listening to Geek Out. What's your cup of tea, tickles your fancy, or floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. I'm your host, Michelle Chang, and today in the studio we have Stephanie Ingmar. Is that Ingmar?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I slaughtered it.
I also go by Shing.
Shing, there you go. What are we geeking out about today?
Let's talk about fantasy maps and cartography.
Yes, I have not had anyone come up here I've had lots of people come up to talk about gaming generally, but no one who actually talked about how useful maps are in said world. First off, let's plug where do we find you?
I'm on Instagram mostly at World Shing,
where you can find all of the really cool maps that you've made. Do you sell them? Do you offer custom services? Do you have just downloads?
All of the above. Usually I'm open to commissions, and I also have all of my past maps available for download on my Patreon. And so all you have to do, less than $3 a month, you have access to all of them. But usually I'm open to commissions as well, in which I will reproduce any map that you wish as long as it is allowed.
Oh, that's true. Copyright, dang it. But let's actually start at the beginning. What are your maps used for?
So, to begin, when I first started, long time ago,
Yay.
I drew maps to impress boys.
Really?
It was something like, oh yeah, I draw really cool maps, and they would say, oh, can you draw me Neverland from Peter Pan or Lord of the Rings? And I'd like, oh, of course I can. And then I would spend hours just drawing these maps for these boys. And then I realized maybe they weren't worth it. So I started just drawing them for fun.
Good.
And luckily, what took me off on this path was one woman said, my husband and my fiance and I really bonded over Final Fantasy VIII, and I would love if you could make me a centerpiece for my wedding of Erzea from Final Fantasy.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it was so scary. For a wedding, I knew it was going to be in their pictures for the rest of their life, and were going to keep this map.
I guess that is very high pressure.
And that was the first time I ever drew a map for someone who really, really wanted my map, besides my mother. And to see the map and the centerpiece on the middle of their perfect, beautiful day, and to still see that couple together was inspiration that made me feel like maybe I could do this for other people.
Yeah.
And the next person who wanted the map was someone who just loved playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they made homebrews, their very own campaign settings, their own world, their own stories. And they had just finished a 10-year game.
Oh, wow.
And to commemorate it, they asked me to draw a map of the world. And they sent me 10 years of notes about all the political events happening in this world, the monsters, where they had died. And they're like, could you put this in this map? Oh, this is a group of people that the last 10 years, like their hearts and love and passion, friendship, they put in my trust to draw.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then after that, it snowballed. More and more people could see that I was drawing maps, and it was still when Instagram was still kind of small. And so it was considered niche. Like, no one else, not that many people were drawing maps. And when we found each other, it was like, oh, hey, I do this too.
Yay.
And that's where it started.
Oh, that's amazing, though. I mean, your first foray was for boys. I did not know that. That's actually a really hilarious story. I'm glad you decided they're not worth it. But right, what an honor to actually draw the centerpiece of a wedding, and a memorial, a thing like for the end of a 10-year campaign.
Yes.
Right, kind of a marker, a year. Like, I don't know what the word is. Commemorative piece for a 10-year campaign. Listeners, I don't think you'll realize that when you play as your character, especially a longer term campaign that you're really enjoying with a group of friends, you're super invested in this person that you, I guess, pretend to be during your games. And yeah, 10 years of notes is a lot of notes that you probably compiled together. But right, okay. So you found your niche community of map makers on Instagram, and that is where we are today.
Yes, it continued to grow. And then with COVID, many people started turning online to play games too.
Yes.
And they were finding other people online to share their passions. And that's when a lot of map makers and fantasy cartographers just shot off. We saw people playing and seeing their maps on like Critical Role. And we saw Game of Thrones. And so meeting the map makers behind these iconic pieces in my community was just inspiring.
Wow.
And what made me realize that it was something very special, not just in the fantasy world, was that in 2020, I was invited to speak at the Canadian Cartographic Association conference.
What? That's amazing.
Because there was a rise in Google for people trying to learn how to draw fantasy maps. And so I was able to, I had to write an entire presentation and do a public talk in front of all these people online about drawing fantasy maps. And then the person after me was the designer for Google. And then we had someone talking about the colors we use in modern day maps versus 1970s. And another person who did the migration patterns of families in the 1800s. And there was your Shing. I draw fantasy maps for people who like to play board games.
Listeners, don't underestimate the size of the population of people who love to do this. In modern day, 2024 already, there are so many reasons for us to want to escape into fantasy. Regardless of what kind of fantasy it is, but to kind of get away from our real world troubles. I think that's the reason why it's gotten so popular, because our real world troubles have gotten numerous and enormous, and it's kind of sometimes so anxiety inducing that doing something like, whether you make maps yourself, I'm sure is stress relief. It's fun, and or playing in the games that utilize said maps. Now, maps are surprisingly important when it comes to these TTRPGs. Obviously, they define where you are. But besides that, let's get real geeky, like the topography and the climate and things, I'm sure that you think about when you're making your maps.
Yes and no. That's the fun part about fantasy as a whole. And that's why I personally like to add fantasy to the tagline. But there are some map makers that make sure there is a science to it. They will make sure that this world makes sense. But there are some times where you draw a map and you just throw the rules out the window. And it's all part of the fun.
Yeah, because magic. Absolutely. But I was reading something earlier by a cartographer who was explaining why communities that have built up in more northern areas of worlds are more prone to violence, raiding, war, versus communities that are from areas where the land is able to provide, plentiful resources. Obviously, we do know this. And then, of course, during the year of like, when do wars start and when do they end, when do they pause, is actually very much influenced by geography.
Yes, geography is definitely an interesting topic.
Absolutely.
And goes beyond just maps in general, because there was the other conversation that I saw recently about wheat growing countries in Asia versus rice growing countries in Asia, and how you grow crops and where the crops grow can influence collectivism and individualism as well.
Yes.
And that's something you need a map to define.
Yes.
So it's just, maps just are all around useful. And one of my favorite comments was someone online was like, we don't use maps anymore. My heart was like, yes,
What?
we do.
What?
There's conferences like every month. We love maps. We love maps so much. They're digital and we have them on our phones.
Yeah.
We're using maps physically. And
Do you not use Google Maps? That's maps. I mean, it's live satellite updated maps, but it's maps.
even physical maps, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're being used in art. So it's amazing how far it transcends.
So you've made a lot of maps, I'm assuming, at this point.
So many. It gets to the point where I go through the list of maps and there has to be alphabeticalized and there has to be a year, and I have to remember which ones are copyrighted, which ones I'm not allowed to share publicly, and which ones I'm asked to share publicly. And so there's all these notes that I need to make sure I have on the maps I've made.
That's really cool. So I'm going to say, what percentage of the maps are commissions versus ones that you are just doing as, hobbies?
So I always would try to make 1 to 2 original maps of my own.
Right.
And it be sometimes even more, because sometimes a word would just strike me like, oh, I like this word. Like, I remember once being in Tennessee, driving down the street, and the road was called Athenaeum. Like, okay, I have to learn what this word means, and it means of Athena and her library and intelligence and wisdom. And I was like, I'm drawing a map named after Athenaeum. And then I went to Thailand and I saw an elephant mermaid, and I was like, oh, I have to draw a map about an elephant mermaid. I have to do this now. Or someone said, what would happen if you just drew a map in which the center was Crater Lake? Oh, okay, we'll have to do that. Or what happens if all the lakes were star-shaped? Okay, now I have to go draw a map. And so it's just like the smallest things can inspire you.
Nice.
And then you take it from there.
Yeah. It is an art, so yes.
And then the other thing you have to do is that different people need different things for maps. And so some people want the names. They don't want to name the place. They don't like names. And so sometimes I can make a little bit extra by saying, well, I'll name everything for you. And I'll come up with fantasy names. But some people want the map completely blank.
Oh.
And you can't just call it a blank map, so I would call them uncharted.
Oh. Ooh.
And so every place would have an open area for you to put in the name of where you're exploring, so that you don't accidentally give away information of your campaign, and that name will be written in as you go along.
Well, because the exploration, the nature of adventuring, right, is a lot of campaigns love.
Yes.
So they don't know the name of this town that they stumbled across until they talk to someone as they stroll in through the palisade. How does one go about custom ordering a map?
Well, it depends on how much information you want to provide me.
Okay.
Some people, they have everything planned out. They know what font, what size of map they want, what's important, what's not important.
Very type A.
And some people will say, please just help me. Here's this scribble. And I love it. I love it when they go, here's the scribble of a world I made. Please turn this into a map. And it's beautiful because you can see all the purpose that went into it. And then I get to see this vision and then go, oh, okay, I see what you're seeing. I know what that scribble is. That's a beautiful tree. That's a beautiful lake. Okay, I can do that.
I'm sure that's really, really amazing for the commissioner to see that their world actually come to life in an actual map. So, that must be so cool. So they will contact you possibly with a lot of ideas, anywhere on a scale of 1 to 10, of no ideas to a lot of ideas.
Yes.
And then you'll start working with the information that you receive. I actually want to ask, what's the wildest map you've ever created?
So
was it the 10-year one?
No, actually, I had someone contact me and they said, I want you to draw me a map, the largest map you can,
What?
an all original map with a very very detailed border. And I want the entire map labeled, named with all the world of your mind.
Oh, okay.
A huge map. It took me maybe 8 months to do.
Wow.
Because I had to draw. I was so intricate and
how
so
big was big?
Poster board size.
Okay.
I think that's 22 by 20 inches. And I was still working full time that's why it took so long. I was working full time. I wasn't just mapping. I still could only map on the weekends. The map ended up being almost $600. And then they tipped me.
Wow. Well,
and they were the ones.
If you spent 8 months, making something, you better get a tip. I'm just saying.
And then they wanted backstory and they wanted information. It wasn't just a map. They wanted a world. So I drew them a world with stories and history and
monsters and stuff.
Absolutely. And then I would give them oh, this is an update, and oh, that place looks like this, and can you add this name for me? Because I kind of like how you named it this, and I want a sub-city name this. Absolutely, 100%, whatever you want.
Oh, so good.
And then it was just wonderful. And then when I give them the map, they loved it so much that they are the ones that they sent me a D7 set of metal dice as a thank you.
Oh, those aren't cheap. It's a nice
they
tip.
were handmade as a thank you for all the hard work they handmade.
Oh, this is a huge set of dice.
Huge set of
as big as your head.
Made metal D7 set of dice.
That's so cool. The ones that you can roll like bowling balls.
It was the wildest thing. I never thought this would ever happen. Someone would love my art so much that they would go above and beyond, asking for everything to be just 100% Shing.
Oh, that's validating. I love it. That's such a great feeling. Okay. Would you give any advice to someone who might want to get into cartography, fantasy or otherwise?
I feel like fantasy cartography is one of the most forgiving art forms.
Well, yes, because magic.
One, it's magical. And you don't have to draw eyes. You don't have to draw hands. There's no anatomy. And then the monsters can be so silly. When you look at old historical maps, you can see just how bizarre some of the
pretty
images
wonky.
Can be.
Yeah.
And so what I really love about maps is that you have maps that look perfect. And those are wonderful maps. But then you have the hand-drawn maps based off like Christopher Tolkien's map.
Ooh, yes.
And that's what I love. I love that you can make it look so human and the community is so accepting. And there are people who want that. There are people who want maps that look like their cartographer drew it while on the expedition.
Yes.
And so that's why I think it's so welcoming.
Yeah. Because
as long as you have a map and you put some love into it, people are going to see that map and be like, that's a world, not just a map anymore.
Absolutely.
People are there exploring, and there's some mysteries to find out about this place.
Yeah, I think that's the most beautiful thing about, and kind of unexpected, and what people underestimate about maps is that is a picture of the world in which your players are in. And yeah, it goes very far to support the imagination palace that's going on there. I think that's very much in the spirit of adventuring. You need a map.
Absolutely. My favorite quote is, "Maps show us where we can go, where we have been, and how we can get there."
Oh, that's so lovely. I love it.
And
that's
so
good.
You can always find home on a map.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so where can we find you?
So mostly I'm available on Instagram. Yay. You can find me at World Shing.
Shing.
Shing is my name. It is an anagram of my initials put together.
Yep.
And I love that it's an onomatopoeia of a sword.
Yes.
Because I feel like the pen is the sword and I draw with a pen.
Oh, that's true. Shing.
It all comes together.
Oh, that's clever. I love it. But right. Okay, so you can find you on Instagram, and you said Patreon?
I am on Patreon as well. Download my maps, and all of the backlog of all maps I've ever drawn are available for download PDFs. If you want a physical print, you'll have to personally message me so I can send it out to you.
But you do that?
I do have some physical prints, but they're in the US, so you have to message me so I can get my manager to send them out to you.
There you go.
My manager is my mom.
Oh, I love that. Dude, my mom is also my biggest fan, so it's really nice to have the supportive family as well.
Absolutely. I think the best part is that when I was doing conventions in the US, my great aunt would go all the way down to Arizona to do every convention as my saleswoman. It became an entire family endeavor before COVID.
That's adorable.
And then I'd have my nephews like, come roll the dice for free stickers if you roll a D20.
Oh.
And my great aunt would be like, come over and see my grandniece.
Oh, I've never been to a convention. I need like a Western
so
one.
Fun.
Yeah, they look fun because I've been on walkthroughs on YouTube and stuff. I'm actually planning a trip to the big one, San Diego Comic-Con in
I've never been to that. That's
huge.
It's wild.
Yeah, that one I guess is the end all of the conventions. I mean, very different vibes because it's so big compared to the smaller ones, but we'll see. That'll be fun. Yes. But cartography, yes. Thank you so much for geeking out with me, Shing. Or should I say Shing?
Shing.
And thanks, listeners, for tuning into Radio Taiwan International. I'm Michelle Chang, and we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Geek Out.